Hello, in this video we will discuss about the respiratory system in human. So the humans contain respiratory system with two lungs and trachea as well as nasal passage and oral cavity which that is also used. So here I am drawing the person which that contain respiratory system. Here is the nasal passage which from the nostril, and this is the basically the clavicle, and the scapula bone is behind the lungs, and this is the nasal passage, and this is the oral cavity is also used for breathing. So this is the pharynx and larynx. Larynx is used for the voice because contain vocal cord, and this is the trachea which that is used for the breathing from lungs. So here is a pleural cavity and diaphragm, which that is the downside. Diaphragm is a muscular tissue which that is used for the exhalation and inhalation, while the pleural cavity is surrounded by the alveoli, so the tracheoles. So this is the pleural membrane is the basically is the pleural membrane line the thoracic cavity containing the lungs. So the lungs are in the pleural cavity, and in lung lie in the thoracic cavity, which is bounded by the ribs and diaphragm. So in this way, I hope you here is the diaphragm. I hope you are getting this picture concept. So let's begin to understand. Here is the cross section of the lungs, which that is showing the half I am drawing. So this is the two ribs, 12 ribs appear in the form of two ribs. Two pair will be floating rib and false rib, while here the bronchus, which that is converted into the bronchioles from the trachea, and this is lungs inside, and this convert into the alveoli, and air sac is a single made up of air sac. Alveoli is made up of air sac. So this is the diaphragm. This is the muscular tissue which that is used for the breathing in and out. So this is the basically depend to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system will increase the breathe out and breathe in, and so exhalation the diaphragm more doom like, while the less doom like when inhalation. So the parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system will regulate this. Why, for example, the sympathetic nervous system will stimulate more breathing and more diaphragm, less doom like, and more doom like for the breathing out and breathing in for more blood circulation for oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. So the major mechanism and major function of the respiratory system in human is basically the respiration and breathing for the exchanges of gases. For example, here is the oxygenated blood will move toward the heart, while the deoxygenated blood will circulate, and the alveolar sac is the smallest blood vessel will exchange the exchange the gases. So this is the, here you can see this is the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange, and this is basically the dendritic cell and macrophage, and this oxygen and carbon dioxide which that is exchange. So in this way, here you can see this is the oxygen and carbon dioxide will be exchanged from the alveolar sac. So important thing you should need to understand, the macrophage and dendritic cell is the barrier immunity, and the orange color shows that the basically is the surfactants, and the basically is the macrophage used for the killing of the pathogen when inhaled. So while this is the pulmonary gases exchange is overview, let's begin to understand the transport of oxygen. So the hemoglobin is the respiratory pigment in human and animals present in red blood cell, made up of 574 amino acid when bind with oxygen. Oxyhemoglobin when bind with carbon dioxide, the carbaminohemoglobin. So in this way, basically is you can see that is the transport of oxygen, and we will also understand about the oxygen and carbon dioxide affinity with the hemoglobin, and what is that. So here is the transport of carbon dioxide is the 70% through combination with water, 20% with hemoglobin. so the more water. So here is the hemoglobin bond with the oxygen in the presence of carbonic anhydrase to form a oxyhemoglobin. While in the lung, when oxygen tension is 100 millimeter of mercury, then hemoglobin gets 98% saturation. It means it contains 90.6 ml of oxygen our per 100 ml of blood. So the carbon dioxide affinity with the hemoglobin will decrease in lungs when while increase in tissue and oxygen vice versa for dissociation of oxygen and carbon dioxide for inhalation and exhalation. So the transport of carbon dioxide, you should need to understand the 70% combination with water and 20% with hemoglobin. So the hemoglobin is basically important. And when pH will be decreased, it means the carbonic acid will be increased. So the carbon dioxide will bind with the water. While on the other hand, the pH will be increased when so the water will be bound with the carbon dioxide to dissociate the proton and donate the proton for decrease the pH. So the carbonic acid bind with the proton will again bind the carbonic acid, and again this can be occur. And 5% carbon dioxide is carried from the body fluid to the capillary of lung by the protein. So the plasma protein. So this is the circulatory system I am drawing here. This is the tissue which that is the upper part of the body and lower part for the exchanges of the gases. And this gas is used for the oxygen is used for the Krebs cycle. So the aerobic respiration, use the cellular aerobic respiration, while the carbon dioxide will be exhaled as a byproduct will produce which that is result of the respiration. So this here is the aorta and left pulmonary artery and right pulmonary artery which that is moved to the lungs. So in this way is the pulmonary circulation. And in this way you can see this is the carbon dioxide and oxygen will be exchanged from the lungs and move toward the pulmonary vein, oxygenated blood, and move to all tissues through aorta, descending aorta and aortic arch for respiration. And again this process will begin and continue. In this way the inferior vena cava and superior vena cava will collect the deoxygenated blood. So the carbon dioxide transport in the body fluid, if we will discuss, so the body fluid, how it's transport from the tissue to the hemoglobin, so to the blood, into the blood. So this is the tissue which that's contain carbon dioxide after the production of energy by the using of the oxygen. So in this way the Krebs cycle will be occur, and in this way the carbon dioxide will be dissociated and carbon dioxide will produce during the Krebs cycle. And in this way here you can see that is the capillary wall, and inside is the blood vessel. So the blood plasma within capillary also. So the carbon dioxide will be also bind with the water to produce the carbonic acid, and this carbonic acid also carbon dioxide will bind with the hemoglobin molecule. Hemoglobin molecule contain heme group, and this is the basically the protein. And on the other hand the carbon dioxide here is the carbonic uh, uh, hydrogen bicarbonate can be converted and release dissociate and the bicarbonate production, while the hemoglobin pick up the carbon dioxide and proton also to bind with this. So the carbon dioxide is binding with the hemoglobin is also occur. So here is the alveolar sac, and inside this is the carbon dioxide transport in lungs. So how it transport in lungs we will discuss. Previous was in the body fluid, while here is the carbon dioxide transport in lung. So here you can see hemoglobin release carbon dioxide and proton, to bind with the bind with the hydrogen bicarbonate, and bind when hydrogen bicarbonate to produce the carbonic acid. So after this carbonic acid, here is the production of water, and this carbon dioxide will be released. The carbon dioxide will be moved into the alveolar sac. So let's begin to understand from the graph. So here is the vertical shows that the hemoglobin saturation with oxygen, while the horizontal is showing that the partial pressure of oxygen with hemoglobin, the partial pressure of oxygen in the form of millimeter of mercury. So when increase the partial pressure will increase the saturation with oxygen with hemoglobin the percentage. So when here is you can see when increase in the 40% partial pressure will lead to increase the saturation of the hemoglobin 98%. So what is the meaning of this? This meaning is that the hemoglobin saturation will when increase the partial pressure, so the arterial blood containing the partial pressure more, so the oxygen will absorb more, while the veins contain less partial pressure. So in this way the less partial pressure will contain less affinity with the oxygen with hemoglobin, but the carbon dioxide affinity with the hemoglobin will be more. So in this way, where the tissues are present, the carbon dioxide affinity with the hemoglobin will be more, while the oxygen will be decreased. So the oxygen factor affecting the left shift curve is also due to the increase of the oxygen decrease increase of the carbon dioxide and oxygen delivery and temperature decrease, and in this way that is the saturation will be more, while the right shift curve which that is showing the oxygen affinity will be increased, and in this way the oxygen delivery also will be increased and temperature will be decreased, which that is lead to down left shift curve. So important things you should need to understand here is the where the tissue are present, the carbon dioxide affinity will be increased with hemoglobin while the oxygen will be decreased. But in the pulmonary circulation, in the pulmonary artery, which contain the affinity with the carbon dioxide will be decreased while the oxygen will be increased. So that is the respiratory system in human body.